In the news tonight, His Majesty the King, the UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, discussed relief aid to Syrian refugees. Egypt's president holds crisis talks as his opponents demand his decree granting him extra powers be scrapped. And 10 children are killed in a school playground as Syrian jets struck rebel positions near the capital and the Turkish border. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. His Majesty the King discussed with UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Valerie Amos relief aid to Syrian refugees in the kingdom. The UN official also reviewed with Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour services provided to displaced Syrians. Jordan will set up a new camp to accommodate 30,000 refugees and will be ready by the end of the year. Khallad has more.
Jordan is a key regional country hosting Syrian refugees with an estimated 250,000 Syrians currently living in the kingdom. More than 40,000 of the Syrians who had fled the conflict back home now live in Zaatari camp and 2 other accommodation centers in the border town of Ramtha. Construction of a new camp is underway. The number is rising on a daily basis, putting additional burden on the kingdom's limited resources. His Majesty the King told UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Valerie Amos a UN contingency plan has to be in place to address the issue of refugees in case the situation in Syria deteriorates further. The King and Amos, who is on a to check on the conditions of the Syrian refugees in the kingdom, discussed forging closer cooperation between Jordan and the world body in humanitarian fields. Jordan, His Majesty said, continues its services to the Syrians on its territory who have stretched its resources and infrastructure. The UN official the King on the UN Relief Agency's mission and pledged that UN organizations will continue supporting the kingdom in hosting the Syrians. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour also reviewed with Amos and UN representative in Jordan, Andrew Harper, the conditions of refugees in the kingdom. Jordan, assured, will continue its humanitarian role towards the Syrians and announced that work is currently underway to set up a second camp for Syrians about 22 kilometers east of Zarqa. The new facility, he stressed, will have proper infrastructure to ensure a decent life for the refugees. The UN official hailed the kingdom as a host of Syrian refugees, emphasizing support for it to continue services to the displaced people. Khallad for the news at 10.
Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour defended his government's decision to raise the prices of oil derivatives, saying it was long overdue. In an interview with Dubai Television, he said the move is part of a package of austerity measures and adjustments, including merging some public entities, curbing purchases and employment in government agencies, and combating corruption.
أولاً يجب أن يكون معروف أن رفع الأسعار ليس الإجراء الوحيد.
First of all, everybody should know that the fuel price hike is not the only action taken by the government. It's one of about 30 decisions. It's unreasonable that a head of government would come forward and raise prices and sit comfortably. It's out of the question. We are working on dozens of decisions, such as merging some ministries, abolishing 2 ministries, annulling or merging or transforming the functions of 27 entities or agencies. We will completely stop hiring employees in the next 4 months. Not a single vacancy will be filled, but selectively or under extremely urgent conditions. Appointments, especially in ministries of education and health, will stop, since they are the most sensitive entities, because they are closely attached to citizens. Another action taken was control of state purchases. Could we postpone the decision? The answer is no, because it should have been taken years ago. It had repeatedly been deferred from government to government, partially because of the Arab Spring. We are specialized, and we know well we had reached a point where we can't tolerate more borrowing or deficit. I pledge on your screen that we will not keep silent on corruption and will look for those behind it. Fighting corruption will be one emblem of the next parliament.
Mansour also told Dubai TV's Zain Al-Yazigi that he hoped the opposition would not have chosen to boycott the upcoming parliamentary elections.
المقاطعة أمر غير مستحب. أنا كنت أتمنى وما أزال أتمنى.
The boycott of elections is something we dislike. I have hoped that this would not have happened. But if Jordanians opt not to participate in the elections, they will send the message that the Muslim Brotherhood has managed to block the elections. The opposition work in the open. Jordanian citizens are the ultimate arbiter and have the final say.
The National Center for Human Rights said the kingdom's pro-reform protest movement has generally been peaceful, but in recent rallies, demands for regime reform grew louder. These issued a report that monitored public grassroots opposition to the government's decision to lift subsidies on oil derivatives and the way security forces and the judiciary dealt with the rallies. The report said demonstrations broke from their peaceful nature, raising demands by verbally assailing the symbol of the state and clashing with gendarmerie and police forces. It said the peaceful protests were also marred by arson attacks on public and private property, including the burning of banks and government headquarters in several governorates. However, it added the identities of the perpetrators or those standing behind such acts have yet to be disclosed. The report said more than 250 protesters had been arrested, including 19 teenagers, adding that human rights teams have managed to interview 89 people held at Swaga Correctional and Rehabilitation Center and prisons across the country. But it added that all the minors were early released on bail. The report documented that 50 security personnel were injured, 17 of them admitted to hospital with gunshot wounds, 4 seriously. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour met with newly appointed UK trade to Jordan, Baroness Morris of Bolton, to discuss means to cement economic and trade ties between Jordan and the UK. Mansour said Jordan is keen to boost business relations with the UK in particular and the European Union in general. The Prime Minister said the government is committed to creating an investment climate to enable British investors to invest in the kingdom and access regional markets. He referred to a number of potential areas for business such as technology, energy, food production, construction and ICT. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour discussed with head of the Hamas government in the Gaza Strip, Ismail Haniyeh, the aftermath of Israel's 8-day offensive. Haniyeh called Mansour to thank Jordan for sending medical and other humanitarian aid to the besieged Palestinian enclave. In Egypt, Egyptian mediators began separate talks with Hamas and with Israel to flesh out details of a ceasefire agreed last week that ended fighting in the Gaza Strip. An Egyptian official said the talks would discuss Palestinian demands for the opening of more Israeli crossings into Gaza. The Egyptian brokered ceasefire into force last Wednesday, ending hostilities between the two sides that cost the lives of 167 Palestinians and 6 Israelis. A Cairo administrative court has set a first hearing for December 4th in a case challenging Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi's decree granting him extra powers. Morsi sparked a political crisis with the announcement last Thursday of the decree that gives him sweeping powers. Morsi's spokesman said the president is optimistic that Egyptians will overcome the country's political crisis. Late Janqiti has the details.
Egyptian president meets senior judges to try to ease a crisis over his decision to grant himself additional powers. The president's decree has set off violent protest reminiscent of the revolution last year that led to the rise of Islamist movement. The justice minister said he believed that Morsi would agree with the country's high judicial authority on its proposal to limit the scope of the new powers. But the protesters, some camped in Cairo's Tahrir Square, have said only retracting his decree will satisfy them. The demand is a sign of the deep rift between Islamists and their opponents that is destabilizing Egypt 2 years after Hosni Mubarak was elected. Morsi's administration has defended his decree as an effort to speed up reforms and complete a democratic transformation. The president's supporters rallied in the streets of Al Arish, in Sinai, and in Egypt's second city, Alexandria.
We support Mohammed Morsi and correct decisions, and eventually the good from the bad will be distinguishable. We support Dr. Morsi for a better life for Egyptians.
Protesters, on the other hand, are worried that Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood aims to dominate the post-Mubarak era after winning the first democratic parliamentary and presidential elections this year.
President Morsi's new decree benefits only the Muslim Brotherhood instead of all Egyptians.
Banners in Tahrir called for dissolving the assembly, drawing up a constitution, and Islamist-dominated body Morsi made immune from legal challenge. Many liberals and others have out of the assembly, saying their voices were not heard. The president's office repeated assurances that the steps would be temporary and said he wanted dialogue with political groups to find common ground over what should go into the constitution. The decree protects the assembly writing the constitution from dissolution before completing its work and now has a deadline of February. The Constitutional Court, which has declared the Islamist-dominated lower house of parliament void, was expected to rule on the validity of the assembly on December the 2nd. Late Shankiti for the news at 10.
Syrian jet fighters struck rebel positions near Damascus and close to the Turkish border. The attack on a Free Syrian Army base near the border came a day before Turkish and NATO officials are due to determine where to station surface-to-air missiles close to the border. Luay Balkar has the details on the conflict.
A school playground outside the Syrian capital is targeted by government jet fighters. Anti-regime activists said jets dropped a cluster bomb, killing 10 children as they were playing outside in Deir al-Asafir village, 12 kilometers east of Damascus. One of the residents said it was indiscriminate bombing. In recent months, there have been mounting allegations that the government has used cluster bombs as the conflict intensifies, but the claims have been denied. Earlier, the rebels captured a military airbase near the capital after a battle in which 2 helicopters were destroyed and 15 people had been taken prisoner. The area around the base in eastern Ghouta has been in rebel hands for some months. The Marj al-Sultan base is the second military facility on the outskirts of the city to have fallen to President Bashar al-Assad's opponents this month. The rebels have recently scored a series of hard-fought advances as they were drawing near to Assad's seat of power. In another major success, the rebels said they had taken control of the Tishreen Dam from government forces. The fighters were touring the dam complex on the Euphrates River near Aleppo, and one man proclaimed the Tishreen Dam is under Free Syrian Army control. Also in the north and near the border with Turkey, Syrian warplanes attacked a rebel headquarters but appeared to miss the target. A Turkish fighter was scrambled to the area and the rebels fired anti-aircraft guns at the Syrian jets, but they were flying too high to be hit. Although the conflict intensifies in Syria by the day, Assad forces still have the upper hand. It's a fight that has already cost the lives of up to 40,000 people. Luay Balkar for the news at 10.
Israel's Defense Minister Ehud Barak has announced he is quitting politics. In a surprise move, Barak said he will not run in a January 22nd election and leave office afterwards. The announcement came less than a week after Israel's 8-day war on the Gaza Strip, but the resignation does not signal a dissent in the government. Barak has been a key player in Israel's tough policy towards curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions and a point man in Israel's strategic relations with the United States. He tried unsuccessfully to make peace with both the Palestinians and Syria during his premiership from 1990 to 2001. He also said he had promoted the development of Israel's missile interception system in the recent Gaza fighting and could be key to any future hostilities with Iran or Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon.
53 years ago, in November 1959, I joined the Israeli army and I've been serving the people of Israel since for 49 years, the best I can. Today I stand before you to share my decision to resign from political life and not to run in the coming election for the Knesset. It was a decision taken without difficulties, but eventually wholeheartedly.
And back here at home, Her Majesty Queen Rania honored the winners of the 7th Queen Rania Teachers Award at a ceremony hosted by the Association of Queen Rania Al Abdullah Award for Excellence in Education. Her Majesty, Chairperson of the Board of Trustees of the Association, commended the winners' work ethics, dedication and commitment. Her Majesty said raising generations and educating them is an honor rather than a profession. She added that it is indispensable and should not hinge on wealth or scarcity of resources. It is a message transforms its bearers. Queen Rania honored outstanding teachers and presented the prizes to the 20 winners in 5 different categories. The ceremony was attended by representatives of the education and media sectors and more than 1,000 teachers from 40 districts in the kingdom. This year, the Teachers Award received almost 1,500 applicants. Despite mounting alarm about climate change, almost 200 nations met for the annual UN talks on global warming in the Qatari capital. But there was little prospect of breakthrough of a new global UN deal to fight climate change meant to start up in 2020. A UN conference 2 years ago agreed to limit any rise in temperatures to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial times. Here's more.
Delegates arrived for the opening of a climate change conference in Doha, Qatar. The summit is being held in a Gulf country for the first time.
On this historic occasion, the Gulf region has an unequaled world stage to showcase the contributions being made to reduce the food and water vulnerabilities, to put regional energy growth on a more sustainable path.
But few expect the 200 participating nations will be able to agree on a meaningful strategy to tackle rising temperatures globally. It is also unlikely they will ratify an extension of the UN Kyoto Protocol, a legally binding plan on cutting greenhouse gas emissions. A failure to reach consensus would undercut work on a new deal to unite rich and poor countries before the Kyoto Protocol expires at year's end. Alarm is mounting around the world as more evidence of the planet's warming comes to light. A UN study revealed that temperatures are set to rise between 3 and 5 degrees Celsius due to emissions, which could lead to more flooding, droughts, and heat waves, as well as rising sea levels.
We begin with football and the Argentine Libertadores Cup. Boca Juniors continued their return to form in Argentina's Primera Division after crushing Racing Club 3-1. Boca opened the scoring from Matias Caruso and then settled the match with 2 fine goals from young midfielder Leonardo Paredes. Racing striker Gabriel Hosch pulled one back with a diving header 6 minutes from full-time. Boca have 30 points in the Primera Division, while Racing have 29. Brazilians voted online and chose Fuleco as the name of their 2014 World Cup mascot, a blue and yellow armadillo. Nature's version is light brown in color, and FIFA's armadillo is yellow with green eyes and a blue shell, the colors of the Brazilian flag, and will be holding aloft a football. The name of the three-banded armadillo, an endangered species indigenous to Brazil, was announced on national television. The name Fuleco was chosen by 48% of the 1.7 million voters, trumping the 2 other options, Zuzeco and Amiubi. Fuleco was officially unveiled by FIFA in November, where he appeared next to former striker Ronaldo. And finally, a quick look at the weather forecast. Chilly tonight with possible scattered showers in central Jordan. Tomorrow it'll be relatively cold in most parts of the kingdom. in the Jordan Valley, with southeasterly moderate winds picking up at times. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a cold night and a fair day tomorrow. Winds will be northerly moderate, changing to brisk, and the seas calm. The Department of Meteorology warns of poor visibility in hilly areas due to fog. Here now is a look at temperatures for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, his reminder of the day's top stories. His Majesty the King and the UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs discuss relief aid to Syrian refugees. Egypt's president holds crisis talks as his opponents demand his decree granting him extra powers be scrapped. And 10 children are killed in a school playground as Syrian jets struck rebel positions near the capital and the Turkish border. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Khan. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.